Hello, and welcome to Embodying Mystical Mac. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining. If you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. Today we have a really exciting book rant about The Viscount Who Loved Me, which is the second book in the Bridgerton series. So if you haven't read it before, I'll give you a very quick spoiler-free review, and then there will be spoilers after that, so you have been warned. So the second book, we dive into Antony's journey, I suppose, to find his wife, right? To find his Viscountess. And overall, for spoiler-free review, the book was really well-paced, unlike season 2 of the show, which we'll get into that when I make a video about that. But the book was super well-paced. Julia Quinn does a really good job at exploring her characters very deeply, but also very believably and also in a really entertaining manner. And this book was absolutely no different. I loved the perspective of the Sheffields, which in the show, for those of you that maybe are here, haven't read the book, don't care about spoilers, whatever it is, but have seen the show, they're the Sharmas. So in the show, they switch their nationality to create diversity, which was awesome. They did that a lot. That was one of the things I talked about in my Bridgerton season 1 video, which you could check out if you so feel called. And so here in the book, everybody is just, English people basically. But you do have a similar thing where Kate and Edwina's family was kind of looked down upon and exiled and whatever. That whole thing that happens in the show also is present here. And that's not really like spoiler information, by the way. Like, you get to know their circumstances, everything pretty early on, much like you do in the show. And yeah, overall, paced really well. The love story is still very intriguing. I definitely was taken by surprise in how things go down, especially because I did watch season 2 before finishing listening to the book. So yeah, it's surprising. It's got that same spice that we all love about the Bridgerton books. And I really appreciate Antony now a lot more than I did before. This concludes our spoiler-free review. So from here on out, there will be spoilers. Don't come for me. I've told you. And let's get into it. I'm just going to start ranting. Ready? It's been a while since I have listened to it. In fact, I am now on to Sir Philip with Love, which is, I believe, book 4 or 5 of the Bridgerton series. And we're into Eloise now, which is fun. But basically, I remember just really adoring the pacing. The pacing of this book was freaking awesome, okay? Whereas the pacing, and I couldn't help but compare it to the show because I had watched the show, the season 2 of the show prior to finishing this. I was kind of like doing it at the same time, and then I kind of lost interest in the book a little bit because the show was like just really, I will talk about it when we get there, but the show was just really keeping me on the edge of my seat, basically. And as much as that sounds like a good thing, it's not a compliment to the show. And I'm not going to get into it here because this is not the video for it. We're focusing on the book. The book, on the other hand, was really, really well paced. And I can't stress that enough because to pace stories, like, obviously it's a thing you got to do. But especially after these are all romance books, basically. And after coming off of The Duke and I, which was awesome, how are they going to make this different? How is Julia Quinn going to differentiate this? And I love that instead of, our fresh, brand new debutante, we have, in Daphne, obviously, we have Kate Sheffield here. And of course, her sister Edwina is a brand new debutante. But Kate is actually, I believe in the show, they might have made her either older or younger. I don't remember which. It worked out regardless. But, we have Kate, who basically has settled into the idea that she's not going to find a husband. This whole thing, she's super devoted to her sister Edwina and getting her a really nice match. And unlike in the show, there's not that whole ruse with the grandparents and stuff like that. I don't want to spoil the show for anybody, but that whole, not even ruse, that whole situation, I should say, there's none of that mixed into any of this in the book. It's just one of those things where Kate obviously starts to see that she has no reason to go against Edwina's courtship with the Viscount, and whereas at first she was very against it. She overhears him saying something that definitely makes him sound like a really calloused man who is not really, he's going to provide for Edwina. Sure, he's going to, he's got money, he's got status, all those things she'll never want for anything, but he doesn't sound like he can particularly love a woman or wants to love a woman when Kate overhears him. And that concerns her. And much like in season 2 of the show, you kind of have this push and pull of Kate wanting Edwina to not fall for this guy, Edwina kind of being a little bit oblivious at first, and then eventually something that is super unexpected happens that basically force Anthony and Kate to marry each other. And in fact, in the book, Edwina has noticed. She's noticed the weird, awkward energy between Anthony and Kate. And everybody is thrilled for them basically when they get married because it seems that it'll work. And in fact, the only one who isn't it's not that he's not happy. Anthony definitely is happy in the sense that's wow, yeah, this woman will totally do, this and this. They'll have a perfectly content life together, whatever. But Anthony, being stubborn and just, straight up obtuse at times, doesn't realize that he can't really stop himself from falling in love with her. He can't, there's nothing for him to do about that other than just really embrace that love. And that honestly was probably the most infuriating part, was kind of waiting for Anthony to understand, finally come to this place of understanding where, oh, nothing I do is going to keep me from loving her. I just have to express it, which, yeah, it's really interesting. The book is really good at exploring how the death of his father screwed him up, for lack of a better term. And especially boys in that day and age. I mean, he had been 16 or something, which by that point they considered him a man, seemingly capable of dealing with whatever and whatnot. And surely he could have used a lot more, emotional support in dealing with his father's death, and he just wasn't given that. And it really, really did mess him up in a way that is super unfortunate. It basically caused him to believe that he would never live past the age his father was when he died, which apparently is a thing. There was a little footnote added in the book. I don't know if footnote is the right word. But there was a little tidbit added in the book about how, especially little boys who have fathers that they look up to, often feel because they'll never live up to the image of their father or something along those lines, there may also be this feeling they may never outlive their father either, even if their father died at a very reasonable age to outlive. And that's certainly happens with Anthony, and it plays a huge part in his like apprehension with giving love and falling in love. Like, part of his not wanting to fall in love is to like spare his wife the grief that he watched his mother go through. And of course, like, that is just such a scarcity mentality, like fear-based way of looking at life, you know? Anyone who's ever truly had a beautiful love and love story will tell you that it is so much more amazing to have known that love and have had to deal with the grief of losing it than to not ever have experienced it at all. And he finally does come to this conclusion. And of course, he ends up outliving his father. But that's like a really interesting thing that the book taught me, and that it explores really, really, really well. Also, the relationship between him and Kate, like the flirtationship, is honestly, that is something that the show got really well. They have really awesome chemistry, the two actors that they chose, and it really is like that. It's like that, you know, that kind of like infuriating passion. That's definitely how it comes off. They're both like super stubborn people, and they butt heads in that way, but they also are super compatible in their own way. And that is a really fun thing to be along for the ride for. Kate is a really interesting character, and I love how we explore this sort of idea that she had to kind of help raise Edwina a little bit, and therefore she's largely like put herself in the back burner. Like, the show did a really good job of having a lot of the same themes and stuff come through. I just believe that the book executed it a lot better. Especially too, because again, the show tried to add that thing with the grandparents. That was just weird. But yeah, and what I love too, and this is true for both, Edwina's and Kate's relationship, just super awesome and super lovely, especially because they are half sisters, right? Like, they're not full sisters, and in that day and age, it was like a much bigger thing. In fact, in the next book, I believe, which is when we explore Benedict's love story, there definitely is like a evil stepsister sort of storyline going on, and yeah, that was like a thing. People were really obsessed with whether you were blood related or not with people. Which, like, rightfully so, but, you know, nowadays, obviously, it's so much more accepted to have chosen family, especially when that chosen family is, like, a stepfather or, like, stepchildren and things of the sort. Let's see. So, just for some final thoughts, another fun fact that I learned from the book, apparently, bee stings and allergic reactions tend to manifest on the second sting, which is what ended up happening to the Viscount, Lord Viscount Bridgerton, Anthony and the kid's father. He was stung by a bee for the second time in his life, and apparently that is when the allergy becomes apparent. And obviously, they didn't have EpiPens then, and he went into anaphylactic shock, and he passed, which, sad. But yeah, I did not know that. That was like a fun fact. I love learning random fun facts like that because my brain literally holds on to them for life. And oh yeah, the Bridgerton family, like, they're always a really fun model for like a good, awesome, loving family. So that's always a really fun thing to read about. And I love, again, like, I'm just gonna reiterate it, I love the way that the trauma of losing his father, especially to something so seemingly arbitrary like a bee sting, right? Like, that's something that they tend to repeat in the books as you go on, is like when they talk about their deceased father, this idea of like how none of them could have fathomed that such, and I quote for some of the times, that such a mighty man could have been felled by a bee sting. Right? Like, it genuinely perplexes them. And I could see without, proper explanation, like now in our day and age, we obviously know, like, okay, you can be super mighty, but if your throat is swelling up because you're going into a major fatal allergic reaction, like, it doesn't matter if you're an MMA fighter, right? Like, you're going to experience the same organ shutdown and everything as anybody, as a child going through that reaction. But of course, he didn't have those explanations back then. He didn't have that. And it just really makes you feel for him. Like, it really does. Reading those parts of the book, because I think that's our prologue, actually. I think it's the bee sting. So it's like the first thing you really get to read, and you could tell how devastated Antony is. And like, Julia Quinn really is a great writer. Like, Shonda Rhimes found some gems for her production company to put on the screen. Yeah, and I really, really, really enjoyed that. Of course, we have like Kate's perspective. We always have both the male and the female perspective in these books, but I can genuinely say that, like, Antony, not comparing to Simon or anything, it's not like one was more interesting than the other. Oh my god, my neighbors are like going inside, and it literally just sounded so weird, but it was because like they had keys and the dog. Anyways, okay. It's not that Simon was uninteresting. He's not uninteresting at all. But this idea of, daddy issues, of a father who's neglectful or cold or whatever, that is definitely something that I have seen more in storytelling, as opposed to, and again, it's not that I've seen it more in quantity, because I definitely feel like the loving parent passing away definitely happens just as much. Hello, Disney. But it's more like, for some reason, when the loving parent passes away, we don't really explore that trauma as much. Like, it's just kind of this thing of like, well, they were loving, so eventually our protagonist comes to accept it, and that's what it is. Which is totally freaking believable, 100%. And sure, it does happen. And yeah, Antony and everybody, all the Bridgerton kids came to accept that, right? But for Antony to have been made the man of the house at 16, like, that's crazy. And then, right, and then have his father die from something that should have only been able to, kill somebody who's frail or a child or whatever. Like, it's definitely like a really interesting exploration of trauma. And especially, like, it makes me think of a really dear friend of mine that her father passed when she was young. And, we've talked about how, like, that, whether you're abandoned because a parent says they don't want you in their life anymore, or death takes them, like, regardless of how it happens, there's shit to deal with there. And the Viscount Who Loved Me did a really, really good job of showing all of that. Yeah, Kate and Antony are super cute, needless to say. Okay, so now we've come to the moment. At the end of every video / episode that I do a collective tarot reading, because I am a tarot reader. And what I've been doing lately is I've just been pulling a card, just one card, to give us a little parting message. And if you are interested in a personal tarot reading, I can give you that information once we're done with this. All right. For those of you that are new here, I always set an intention that I am a clear channel for divine guidance, and that I am conducting this reading for the highest vibrations of all involved. And I am using the Tarot of the Divine, which is one of my favorite tarot decks. I do have a few. Next time I'll be using. I guess the deck wants me to stop shuffling right here. Here we go. And apparently that deck is not ready to be revealed. I was telling you that I was going to be using a certain deck next time. That deck was like, no, not ready. Okay. We've got the Queen of Swords. All right. The Queen of Swords. I love to look. Oh, man, these gloves are not helping me. There we go. I love to look in the little booklet. Although the Queen of Swords, I definitely could tell you about her, but I feel called to look in the booklet. If I could just split this page, man. How did these Bridgerton ladies do it? Oh, my God. All right. Okay, so the words associated with this card here are protection, meaningful criticism, tough love, skepticism, and intelligence. Okay. I'm also feeling it's almost like this card came in sideways. It's like not necessarily upright, not necessarily reversed. So let me give you what the reversed word associations are: bitterness, vindication, judgment, malice, pessimism. Okay, so right here what I'm sensing is either this is perhaps you're in a situation where you are experiencing this, or perhaps there's somebody around you that is displaying this kind of energy. And it's this kind of energy where it can either be, again, protective and a sort of feeling of tough love and healthy skepticism and really useful and valuable intelligence. But that same kind of wisdom and help can border on bitterness and a need for vindication and judgment. I'm not going to say as far as to say malice because I don't sense that, but pessimism for sure. So the way that I feel about this card right now, it's like, be very mindful of where your intentions are coming from if you are in a position where these are kinds of things that are resonating with you right now. Are you in a position where you are the protector, right? Where you are someone that is supposed to offer intelligence and maybe some tough love and maybe be present with a little bit of skepticism when situations call for it. And if so, are you showing up to that role in a way that's aligned, in a way that is connected to unconditional love, like, right? In a way that puts you in a position to really give those things. Because protection, counsel, intelligence, those things are not things that should be given from people that have not, for lack of a better term, earned the right to do so, right? Like, I don't want to be protected by a person who's never learned how, like, if I'm talking physically, right? I don't want to be protected. Like, I'm not going to hire a security company who doesn't hire people that can hold their own in a fight, that can be vigilant enough to watch out for me in crowded places, right? Like, I need some sort of proof that this person is someone who can provide protection. So what I mean by that is, like, to be in that position where you can offer counsel, where you are the one that someone is looking to for intelligence and things like that. That is something to not be toyed with. Oh, echo. Stop. Yeah, she told me to meditate. Thanks, girl. That is a very important place, regardless of whether, like, you're the cabinet, or you're on a president's cabinet, or you're giving your best friend advice, or you're a parent and your child is coming to you, or it doesn't matter what situation it is. To sit in that position is really honorable and just shows that somebody really, really trusts you. And the second you turn to, bitterness and judgment and pessimism, it's of my opinion that you need to check if you really belong in that position anymore. And if this isn't perhaps yourself, maybe there's a person in your circle that is kind of taking that position for granted. And if that's the case, addressing that in whatever way that you see fit is probably the best way to go. But the thing is, we got the Queen of Swords here, right? So this isn't about like having emotional outbursts or making decisions from highly emotional states. It's about going about this logically. It's about going through the situation with grace and with the kind of reverence that you would hope that somebody would recognize when you're saying to them, hey, your opinion is of value to me. You know, your thoughts on this particular thing that I'm coming to you with matters. Right? Like, you can choose how to respond in any situation, really, but definitely in situations where you're dealing with people that are close to you, it's always best to like tread mindfully. It's not like you need to plan all the steps and things, but it's just like be mindful that you're making decisions from a leveled place, right? Something that I kind of like to do for myself, because I know that even though a lot of the decisions that I do come to when I'm like in the heat of emotions do turn out to be good decisions, I tend to wait until I'm out of the heat of those emotions to actually implement those decisions, to make those decisions. And I check myself to be like, are those decisions that are actually going to serve me? Did that passion lead me correctly? Or was that passion kind of blinding me to certain things? All questions that are worth asking yourself. Yeah, that'll be our message for today. If that reading intrigued you at all and you would like one for yourself, go ahead and go to calendly.com/mysticalmac. Click the tarot reading option and you can book a reading there. I'm doing them by donation right now. So basically when we come to the end of the Zoom reading, it'll be about 30 minutes. You can decide whatever it is that you would like to PayPal or Venmo me. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. Let me know what you think of The Viscount Who Loved Me. If you have read the Bridgerton books at all, they are a really fun read for those of you who haven't and are thinking you might. And they are available for audio even through the library app. I don't know, for those of you that maybe aren't in the US or maybe are in different states, I don't know how library apps work in general, but the LA library has one, and that's what I've been borrowing the books through. Sometimes there's a wait, but for the most part, like, I've been able to get them, and yeah, it's definitely worth the read if you're looking for something fun, but also spicy and well written. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful for you, and I'm super stoked to see you next time. I'm quite unsure of the next video I'm gonna record, but if you want something in the meantime, I have a whole anime rewatch series where I rewatch one of my favorite anime of all time, Inuyasha. If you know it, I highly suggest you check out that series. Thank you very much. I love you. Stay mystical, stay grounded. Bye. This is such a cute little dance card. It's from the Bridgerton experience. By the way, this is my Bridgerton crown and my Bridgerton gloves. They will be making an appearance on all Bridgerton videos. Okay, bye!